A lot of journalists, me among them, are really struggling with the willingness of a lot of Americans to believe things about the 2020 election that time and again have been shown to be untrue. And no number of recounts, audits, and court decisions seems to matter. I continue to receive emails and messages from those who insist I am dishonest and part of a massive public delusion, but they believe President Trump, even though the Washington Post catalog of his untruths while in office runs to more than 30,000 instances. Well, an interesting take on this appeared in the New York Times last week, a piece called Why Millions Think It Is Trump Who Cannot Tell a Lie. And it was written by my next guest, Thomas B. Edsall, who writes every week for the Times. Mr. Edsall, I'm so glad you're with me. I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your thoughtfulness on this matter, because maybe we need to start understanding the incalcitrance, understanding it, instead of continually insulting it.
It is a strange phenomenon, and it has bothered me just as it's bothered you. How could so many people believe what clearly appears to be a falsehood? And it is it is infecting our political system in ways that appear increasingly dangerous, where you have people rejecting the outcome of an election, which is a basic operative premise of democracy, that elections are considered, or are at least treated, as legitimate outcomes. What I found in doing this research on this, talking to a lot of people, is that a lot of Republicans, especially Republican elected officials, likely do not actually believe this, but they are acceding to it as a form of what you could call virtue signaling. They're signaling to their conservative fellows that they accept Trump and that they accept kind of his populism and his premise, but they actually, underlying that, do not believe it. So it's a very curious phenomenon.
It is, and what you write and have found from the many people you talked about is behind it has less to do with elections or voting or any particular things that happened on 2020, and more societal changes that are shifting beneath the feet of a lot of, especially, I think, as many people are writing, white Americans and older Americans, that is very discomforting to many people, and that they're not quite sure of how to deal with the new America that they're seeing.
Yeah, the world has changed for many Americans, especially right where you are, well, outside of where you are in Michigan, rural Michigan, small town Michigan, has become a universe where what had once been a honored, well-lived middle-class life has now become a life of decline, a cultural change that has, in many respects, left these people behind. The world seems to be adverse to them. And Trump spoke to that, to these people, and he did very successfully win them over, and they became more Trump loyalists than they became Republicans. That encouraged a willingness to believe what they disbelieve, sort of a culture where accepting what Trump said as true became kind of a mandate for survival in this complex world. I'm not sure if I'm conveying this correctly, but it's a different worldview.
It makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that for the most part, a lot of people who have gone along with this, or maybe have been absent in protesting it, maybe is a better way to even think about this. It's come with very little cost. Now, we've seen it come with the cost for those who, many of those who've now been charged with what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. But now, we're starting to see, for instance, we've got this group of Michigan Republicans I mentioned in the last segment, segment that have now, we've got a prosecution or an investigation maybe underway as to whether they committed fraud by signing on to what clearly appeared to be a false narrative about who won the election in Michigan. Are there costs that may end up being exacted on some of these folks, whereas before it just sort of seemed like an idea that might not end up costing you much?
Well, the costs are being imposed on a very small segment. I mean, even in Michigan, this is a small, tiny fraction of the total percentage of people who believe. So it's not as if the costs are really being felt. The real costs are that once people are willing to accept a lie that they know is a lie, they're then ready and willing to do that in the future. And in the future, we have the election of 2022 coming up and 2024 coming up, the 24 election. If the 2024 election is close, you have now large numbers of elected officials who've been willing to concede to or accede maybe to challenges of the legitimacy of an election when they know the challenges are wrong. That makes them basically ready allies in the future to very, very dangerous challenges into our whole democratic process.
I fear that is so, and we've got to leave it there. Thomas Edsall, I so appreciate the time. I recommend Why Millions Think It Is Trump Who Cannot Tell a Lie for further thought on this. Thanks so much for your time today, sir.